The imperfect tense. This conveys continuous or repeated action in past time. We're on page 349. I don't expect you to memorize this. I'm going to just shoot it at you so you see what's on this page and you can refer to it later. But if it's in the imperfect tense, it's saying that the action of the verb is continuous or repeated and it took place in the past somewhere. That would be the imperfect tense. It is the action that has occurred more than once. For example, Mark 5:18 talks about they was entreating. Like sometimes the demon is crying out, was saying something, or the person is crying out, the woman was pleading, and it happened in the past, continuously repeated action. It also conveys habitual or customary action. Every day I used to sit in the temple teaching. Jesus said that in Matthew 26:55. Every day I used to sit. That was in the imperfect tense, meaning there was a habitual practice. I sat in the temple teaching publicly. I wasn't hiding somewhere teaching some secret doctrine. I was in the temple. I was in the teaching center of Israel, teaching daily, habitually. What is your complaint? What do you want to know? Why are you questioning me? You've heard me teach. Many of you sat there and listened and scoffed in the background. I was there habitually. That would be the imperfect tense. The aorist tense conveys a point of action in the past. Notice, a point of action. The action is viewed as a completed whole or a one-time action. This is determined by the text. And you got different things, different examples here. Effective or successful action, as in 1 Timothy 1:3. You may instruct certain men. Effectively, you may effectively at a point in the past do this. And I've got other examples written there that you can see. Perfect tense conveys completed action in the past with finished results still abiding in the present. Now that's kind of exciting. A completed action in the past with finished results still abiding in the present. So something happened in the past, it's done and finished, but we're still living with those results today. Indicates that a past event is now complete or it has continuing effect or consequences. Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace are you saved, which means for by grace you have been saved in the past, with the result that you keep on being saved forever. I mean, right there, my friends, again, that whole debate, eternal security, can you lose your salvation? I mean, I'm not, yes, you can pick different verses and try and, make the argument. But here, for example, is one verse that would be used by those who believe in the eternal security. For example, I'll read it to you again. It means completed action in the past with finished results still abiding in the future, which means, for by grace are you saved. You are saved in the past, and the results continue into the future. I mean, you can make your argument simply from the verb tense. You say, well, I don't know. People would say, that's awful deep, that's awful confusing. Does God really want us doing that? Do you remember Jesus arguing with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Herodians on the last week? I think it was like on Tuesday, the last week of his ministry. When they came to ask him all kinds of questions. Who should we give? Who should we pay our taxes or should we not? Should we do this or should we not? They came to the Sadducees, and says, there was this man that was married to this woman, and he died, so she married his brother. Then he died, and she married his other brother, married all 7 brothers, until finally she died, and they're all in heaven, whose wife is she? He says, you're in error because you do not know the power of God or the Scriptures. And he goes on and he makes this quote. He says, Abraham, when God appeared to Moses, he says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he rested his argument on that. He said, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When he says, I am, he was talking to Moses in 1400 BC about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who lived 2000 to 1800 BC, some 600 years before. And he says, after they've been dead for some 600 years or 400 years, he still says to Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In other words, he should have said, according to the Sadducees, I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But God says, I am, which means he's still their God. They still exist. They still have a relationship that he can be called their God. So, I mean, understand, not to make a big point about this, but a lot of these theological discussions, a lot of an understanding comes down to the tense of the verb. Should we mess with it? Well, Jesus did. He shut the Sadducees down by saying, Moses was told, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What was the point? They're not dead. They're not on earth any longer, but they still exist. Remember, the Sadducees did not believe in life after death. They didn't believe in the resurrection. And that verse right there, the tense of that verb, in Jesus' mind, it destroyed their whole theological basis. I am. Should be I was. Okay, anyway, that's the perfect tense. There's other examples you can see there. We go on to page 350. The pluperfect tense conveys completed action in the past with finished results in the past. John 19:22, what I have written, I have written. I wrote in the past, and the results are done in the past. That's it. We're not going back to it. Present tense conveys continuous or habitual action, and that is something you kind of want to remember. The present tense is something you kind of want to remember. Many verses will have this in there. The action that occurs or happens over and over again, as in Matthew 10:1, to repeatedly cast them out, or to over and over heal every kind of disease. So when Jesus was going about healing every disease and casting out the demons, he was doing it over and over and over and over again. They just couldn't, he just wouldn't stop. Continuous habitual action again. And future tense, action planned for a future time. And then there's an example in John 3:36. They shall not see life. That is in the future. They have life now, but in the future they shall not see life someday in the future. And so now listen, every verb has tense, voice, and mood. Now this is why this can become very exciting, and of course I'm just throwing it out at you, but you can see how you'd like to spend, if you're interested, weeks studying this and learning this, because every verb, pow, explodes in the Greek. And here it goes, 6 different tenses are available. Then you go to the voice, and that's the next thing. It expresses the relationship between the subject of the verb and the verb's action. And this is basic. You've got active, you've got passive, and you've got middle voice. And this, of course, is also useful because, well, here we go. Active, the subject causes or produces the action of the verb. If the verb is in the active sense, the subject of the sentence is doing the verb. If it is in the passive voice, the subject of the sentence, well, let's read it right here. The subject receives the action. It's underneath C, the first point under C. The subject is receiving the action. Sometimes in the English, it's just kind of hanging there. The subject of the sentence and the verb are all together. But when you find out if it's active or passive, you find out if that subject of the sentence is actually doing it, or if the subject of the sentence is having it done to them. You know, they shall receive life. Are they causing that life to come to themselves, or are they passively receiving life from somewhere else? And again, you can understand possibly how certain theological debates can hinge on if it's passive or active. Where's the action coming? Is God causing the action, or are people causing the action, or is Satan causing the action, just for example. And then the middle voice, the subject is involved in the action, most often in the interest of the subject itself. And it's interesting, well, let's see, we got John 15:16. You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you. Again, there's an example of the subject, God choosing, and the reason he chose was for his own purpose. It was like, this was my idea. And there's your active, middle, and passive voice. And then you get into mood. That's the third thing right here. The mood that refers to the manner in which an action is conceived by the speaker. Notice what it says, as it's conceived by the speaker. This is the speaker. This is coming out of the speaker's mind, the way they perceived it. Now, of course, if it's the Word of God, it's inspired, we would assume it's true. But they could have someone saying something, like the Pharisees could say something, and from their perspective, this is how they perceived it. They conceived it this way. But so that keeps in mind. There are 4 moods. The indicative mood is the mood of reality, indicates that the verb really happened, at least in the mind of the speaker. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word. That is the mood of reality. So you can have the tense, perfect or past tense or future. The voice, telling if it's active, middle, or passive. But also now, what are they saying? Are they saying that this is a reality? I mean, it's going to depend on how you translate. This is really in the beginning was the Word. The subjunctive mood, the mood of potential, meaning it could happen, indicates that the verb could potentially happen, as in John 14:31, come now, let us leave. So when that is said, come now, let us leave, it's like, this is not a reality. This is what we're going to attempt to do. It's potential. We are going to leave. Come, let's begin trying to leave. Jesus died, number 3. Or point 3 under B, under the subjunctive. Jesus died, it's written in the indicative mood, that all might, subjunctive mood, be saved. Remember, the subjunctive mood is the mood of potential. And so that all might be saved. Potential, in that verb, potentially, all could be saved. That's interesting, especially with some of the study I'm working on right now. Jesus died, indicative, is again the mood of reality. Jesus really died. In the mind of the speaker, Jesus really died. but also in the mind of the speaker, the reason he died was that the potential would be created that all could be saved.